Imagine if small irritations no longer controlled your day. A careless remark, a delayed response, a moment of disrespect, these things still happen. But they no longer stay with you. Not because life became easier, but because your mind became steadier. Most people believe anger is unavoidable. They try to manage it after it appears. Stoic philosophy suggests something far more powerful. If you learn to recognize the very first movement of anger, the subtle tightening before reaction, you can prevent many conflicts from ever beginning. In this reflection, we explore a mindset that allows you to remain composed, even when the world around you is not. Consider an ordinary morning. You arrive early, you complete your work carefully, you expect quiet recognition. But the day continues. No one notices. A small discomfort appears, not because something terrible happened, but because reality did not match what you silently expected. This is how anger often begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but as a quiet resistance to how things are. The Stoics trained themselves to notice this inner resistance. Because when expectation loosens, emotional stability strengthens. It is easy to believe that anger is caused by other people, their tone, their impatience, their lack of awareness. Yet observe closely. Two individuals can face the same situation. One remains calm, another feels deeply disturbed. The moment was identical. The inner experience was not. This reveals something important. Anger is rarely created in the event itself. It grows from what the event touches within us. Old disappointments, unspoken fears, habits of interpretation. Understanding this changes how we move through conflict. Often anger rises when identity feels unsettled. Being ignored can feel like rejection. Being corrected can feel like humiliation. Being misunderstood can feel like injustice. In such moments, the mind moves quickly to defend itself. But pause and ask quietly, is this truly about principle or about protecting how I wish to be seen? The Stoics practice this question often. Because when ego softens, many confrontations lose urgency. What once felt personal begins to feel temporary. Stoic philosophy rests on a simple distinction. Some things are within our control. Our thoughts, our choices, our responses. Most things are not. Other people's reactions, their moods, their assumptions. When we try to control what belongs to the outer world, frustration grows. But when we strengthen what belongs within, anger begins to lose direction. You still feel emotion, but you are no longer driven by it. This shift forms the basis of inner steadiness. Anger rarely appears all at once. Before words are spoken, before expressions change, there is usually a small internal signal, a tightening of the chest, a sudden rush of heat, a quick story forming in the mind. Something feels unfair, disrespectful, intolerable. Most people miss this moment. By the time they notice anger, it has already grown strong enough to control their response. The Stoics trained themselves to recognize this first signal, because the earlier you notice it, the easier it becomes to remain steady. Once the first signal appears, most reactions follow a familiar pattern. A thought becomes a judgment, the judgment becomes certainty, and certainty demands reaction. But Stoic practice introduces a small interruption in this process, a pause, not a long withdrawal from the world, just a brief moment of awareness, a moment to observe what the mind is preparing to do. In that pause, something remarkable becomes possible. You remember that reaction is still a choice. Another powerful Stoic habit is the practice of reframing. When something feels offensive, the mind immediately creates meaning. They disrespected me. They should know better. This is unacceptable. But these interpretations are not facts. They are conclusions. And conclusions can be reconsidered. Perhaps the person was distracted. Perhaps they misunderstood. Perhaps the moment is simply unimportant when interpretation softens. Anger loses much of its fuel. Remaining calm is sometimes misunderstood. It is not weakness. It is not indifference. It is discipline. Anyone can react quickly. Anyone can raise their voice. But maintaining composure requires something rarer: clarity. The Stoics believed that a steady mind creates stronger influence than emotional force ever could. A calm presence often changes the tone of a situation before conflict has time to grow. Over time, this practice creates a quiet advantage. You begin to notice anger. Earlier than before, you pause before reacting. You question the first interpretation the mind produces, and gradually, many conflicts that once felt unavoidable simply pass by, not because life stopped presenting challenges, but because your response became more deliberate. This is the deeper promise of Stoic discipline, not the absence of emotion, but freedom from being ruled by it. One method the Stoics practiced was creating emotional distance, not physical distance, but mental space. When something upsetting happened, they imagined stepping slightly outside themselves, observing the situation, as if watching a scene unfold. This simple shift reduced the intensity of reaction. Instead of becoming the emotion, they became aware of experiencing it. From this awareness, responses became more measured. The mind gained room to think. And in that room, anger often lost its urgency. Much anger comes from invisible expectations. We expect appreciation, we expect fairness, we expect others to think as we do. When these expectations remain unspoken, they quietly shape emotional reactions. The Stoics practiced lowering expectations, not out of pessimism, but out of realism. They reminded themselves that people act according to their own understanding. When expectations softened, disappointment softened as well. And with less disappointment, anger found fewer places to grow. Another Stoic practice was mental preparation. They did not wait for difficulty to appear. Each morning, they briefly reflected on the possibility of encountering impatience, criticism, or neglect, not to feel discouraged, but to feel ready when challenges later emerged. They felt familiar. The mind had already rehearsed composure. This preparation reduced surprise, and when surprise decreases, emotional reactions often become gentler. With practice, Stoics became selective in reaction. They asked a simple question: does this truly deserve my disturbance? Many moments that once triggered anger were revealed to be minor, temporary, forgettable. By reserving emotional energy for what truly mattered, they preserved clarity. This selectiveness created a sense of inner authority. Instead of reacting automatically, they responded intentionally. And intention is often the quiet end of unnecessary anger. Modern life encourages speed, instant messages, immediate replies, rapid judgments, but Stoic wisdom values slowness. A slow response creates space for understanding. It allows emotion to settle before action begins. Often, what seemed urgent in the moment loses importance with time. By choosing not to react immediately, the Stoic mind protects its own stability. Patience becomes a quiet form of strength, and strength expressed quietly rarely needs to defend itself. Over time, something begins to shift. Not that difficulty disappears, not that irritation never arises, but something changes in how it is experienced. You begin to notice anger, the way you might notice a cloud passing through the sky, present, but not permanent, felt, but not followed. This is what the Stoics called emotional sovereignty, not the absence of feeling, not a cold detachment from life, but the quiet power of living from choice. rather than impulse. You still feel what life brings. You still notice discomfort. And then, with practice, you decide what comes next. That decision is the true definition of freedom. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom found within it. Few people consider the hidden cost of anger. It is not only the moment itself that drains energy, it is the hours that follow, the replayed conversations, the imagined responses, the quiet tension that settles in the body, long after the moment has passed. Anger, even when justified, is expensive. When reactions begin to soften, something remarkable becomes available. Inner space, space once consumed by resentment, becomes available for clarity, for family, for purpose, for rest. This is why Stoic peace is not passive, it is deeply practical. When the mind is no longer occupied with grievance, it becomes capable of something greater. It becomes free to focus on what truly matters. It is important to say clearly, Stoicism does not ask you to endure everything in silence. There are moments when words must be spoken, when limits must be named, when a situation calls for response. The difference lies not in whether you act, but in how. A response delivered from calm clarity carries a different quality than one delivered from agitation. The words become more measured, the tone more firm, yet free of aggression. Others sense this. When you speak from stillness, people listen differently, not because you raised your voice, but because you did not need to. Quiet strength communicates something that anger rarely can, that you are entirely in control of yourself. The Stoics were practitioners of long-term perspective. When faced with a troubling moment, they would often pause and ask, will this matter in a year, in 5 years? More often than not, the answer was no. And with that recognition, the intensity of the moment quietly softened. This is not dismissal, it is proportion. It allows the mind to distinguish between what is temporary and what is truly significant. Most conflicts, when seen through the long view, begin to look very small. This does not mean they feel small in the moment. It simply means that how long you carry them is entirely within your choosing. Let the long view choose wisely for you. What we have explored today is not a quick technique. It is a way of seeing. Anger does not arrive without reason. It emerges from unmet expectations, from identity under pressure, from the quiet belief that we cannot absorb what life sends. But you have seen that each of these can be addressed with observation, with practice, with patience. This is a slow-growing mindset. It does not transform overnight, but one quiet decision at a time. It changes how you move through life. You become less shaken, less reactive, more settled within yourself. If this has been useful to you, stay with us. There is more ahead. Calm, practical, lived wisdom, one step at a time.